Serverless Java, I guess it was your idea, the topic, but the topic is perfect because you get such questions all the time. And I think, okay, this is slideless is a little bit exaggerated. So I created 2 slides, 3 slides actually, not to forget things. So short introduction, I'm a freelancer. I really like Java still. So it is 25 years old and I enjoy it more and more actually, which is a bit strange, but it's good for me. So I don't have to switch jobs or whatever. So, and I maintain a blog, which is basically a notepad. There are online workshops, but there is no workshop about serverless, more about microprofile backends and frontends. Online virtual workshops is the live and com, and the FM is the podcast with various people from community. Because usually I have no time for conferences. So if I attend a conference, I spend a few hours at the conference, and then it was last year. This year, there was no conferences, but last year. And because I had no time to speak with the speakers and other interesting people, I invite them to a podcast. I have a freestyle chat. Okay, so and if you have any questions left, Airhacks TV is the first Monday of the month. You don't even have to subscribe or register. You can just write a question in a gist, and I try to answer the question. That's all. And what's the deal? I don't answer any technical questions via email. So if you try, to ask me something via email, I will always redirect to here. So it's time saver from my perspective and fun for you, hopefully. Okay, this was the agenda. And what is serverless? And the serverless, if I hear serverless, is for me a very similar reaction as agile a few years ago. Because there was started at the airport Munich workshops. There were lots of requests about serverless, and one project had to do serverless and AWS lambdas because this was the idea from the architect, and developers had to do this. And this is was painful, because what serverless automatically implies in most of the cases is something like a lambdas or functions. So what it means is you are pushing a function somewhere, and the function is invoked by the cloud infrastructure, and you pay per invocation. This is basically everything. So usually serverless doesn't have to be, function as a service, but I think it always is. And and if you think about this, so I don't know how long you are in the software development, but what I remember is the command pattern, overuse of command pattern. I think it was around 2003, I thought about that before the show. And what I remember, I was at a Bolland conference. I don't know, it was in Netherlands, and it was from Bolland. And I try, to show how to build enterprise architectures with very, very similar ideas to now. So like boundary control entity, but this was differently named, but it was almost the same. And people from the audience and architects ask me, but this is no decoupling. Why are you not using command pattern? And what command pattern was back then, object in, object out. So this was like, command pattern was like a method with the name execute or do it or run or whatever. Input is object, Java-lang object, and the output is another Java-lang object. And this was a very, modern or very popular pattern back then. I don't know why. And then it just disappeared because what I also did back then are lots of code reviews. And what I saw back then is if you do this pattern, the applications are not maintainable because, the architects wanted to have it because they could compose from functions or commands the entire application. The problem, of course, is if everything is an object, there are no types. There's lots of casting and lots of boilerplate. Question to anyone from the chat. Do you remember the times with the command pattern? So just write something to the chat, because I remembered and I had to fight against that. I was mostly alone, with the fight. Yes. So Michael says yes. So, and if you do lambda, perfect. Seba says, I was too young. Good for you. So now, but it comes back. So if someone is too young, no problem. If you wait 10 years, it comes back to you with a different name. But if you exaggerate with the functions, it is exactly the same as a command pattern, but instead of local invocations, you get network in between. So this is the main difference. Okay, so what is serverless? So the next thing is, the next over-exaggeration was, it was a little bit later, I would say 2006, 7, 8, something like this. And this was default from IBM consultants, I have to say. Hopefully there's no IBM people on in the chat. But what they did, at least in Germany or Europe, they wanted to sell MQ Series in JMS. They pushed JMS like crazy. And what they wanted to have as decoupled message-oriented services. And the problem was exactly the same. But it was a little bit worse because all the message-driven beans were void. There was no response. It was the input, and the input was a message, a generic message with Java XJMS message, which could be map message and stream message and object message and text message. And another message which I forgot were like 5 different messages types. But the problem was the same with JMS queue or topic in between. And the effect was exactly the same. So there was a lot of code to write. You get a lots of topics and queues, and no one knew actually what's going on. And so this was the if I saw the function as a service, I remember the command pattern immediately, and then the JMS pain, because it isn't bad. It was overused. That's the problem. Cool. So what is serverless? So first, the name is of course stupid, because for every serverless architecture you need a service. But what it means is that we don't have to buy servers. And the main difference is if you go to the cloud, if you would like to deploy your application to the cloud in Kubernetes, let's say Amazon. So I will show a little bit from Amazon infrastructure today because I'm using Amazon right now, and I have also different accounts, but they are very, very similar, and switching between cloud providers would imply switching the keys and Kubernetes versions and kubectl versions, and this is a little bit dangerous for a presentation. And so in Amazon, if you would like to run Kubernetes, which is actually similar to functions, the difference is the first thing Amazon will ask you, which servers would you like to have? T small, this is like T2, small, large servers, how many servers you would like to do. And this is so-called Kubernetes control plane. And these servers will run all the time. So right now I have 3 servers, small, just for fun for me. And they cost me around, with Kubernetes backplane, sorry, not backplane, it's called control plane. And they will cost me about $100 a month. So, and they are always active. And this is what costs an EKS Kubernetes service from Amazon. But this is not serverless because, I have to set up the servers. So from the programming model, it's kind of serverless because I push, Kubernetes services to the cloud and they start and do something. But I had previously, to create my own servers. And if I would like to scale, then I will have to put more and more servers, and Kubernetes will distribute the pods around nodes. So server is a node. This is what you have to buy, and pod runs on the node. In Lambda, it's a complete different beast. So there are no servers. So if you start, if you go to Amazon, if you would like to push a single command as a Lambda Java version, what happens then is, it will just run and you will pay per use. How much? I check out this today. For 1 million invocations, you will pay around 20 cents. And this is, of course, or 20 pennies. I'm not sure, but the 20 cents, so of course, depending from the memory consumption. But this is what you will pay. It sounds a little, but it's not that small amount of money, because I did the math. So some of my clients running servers which one node processes 4,000 transactions per second. Actually, they are the numbers from, I remember a project in 2008. And there were 4 such servers. Let's say we have just 4,000 transactions per second. And if you do the math, so I mean, these 1 million invocations are over within, in 1 hour, and in a day, it will cost you about €7 one server per day. So and if you run Kubernetes, it is going to be cheaper. So what it means is, about the costs. It really depends how often such functions are invoked. If you need to know the traffic all the time, something like Kubernetes Docker, like ECS, AKS, or IKS, IBM Kubernetes servers, or AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service may be cheaper than the functions. But I think the functions are a complete different purpose. We'll see in a second. So, and can Java application ship as a function? Absolutely. But it really looks like the command pattern. You will see in a second. It is like the method. Oh, someone would like to ask question, or was it? It sounded like a zombie. So, questions? No questions. So, right. Can we ship Java as a function? Yeah, but it will look like command pattern. And how this looks like depends on provider API, but it's almost always either kind of HTTP event or a binary event. And these events are going to be standardized, or there's attempt to standardization of such event, which I would like to show you in a second as well. And what are the killer use cases for serverless application? This is one of the view slides. I try to not to forget things, so I will cover everything at once. I think the same use cases, like the same use case back then for message-driven beans almost, is integration purposes. I think where the function shines, you have like something like SQS on Amazon, a simple queuing service, and you get events from somewhere, or you have a Kinesis or Kafka managed on Amazon, and you get the events from IoT devices. So I think a function is the most natural thing to consume such events. So what the function could do, could consume such events and forward them to somewhere else, to a reasonable Java app, for instance. So this is what I think, this is like the natural use case, because if you get lots of events, there's lots of such concurrent functions that's going to be invoked, and the default AWS is you get 1,000 concurrent functions can be invoked, and then you have to increase it, but this is the default setting. So like integration between queues or events, this is actually what I would see. So Sousa asked me, the question was the Bruno Sousa, would be interesting. Is Java inferior to Node, Go, Python in terms of serverless? Some people say it takes longer to start compared to other languages. Not what I showed you today, but I think it really depends what you are doing in Java, right? So what I show you today is probably as good as Go. I think Node.js is a little bit worse. And the question is not an inferior, you mean startup times. The question is, do they really matter, the startup times, if it consumes events from a queue, which is Kafka? So whether and what all the cloud providers are able to do, they can keep the function warm. So what it means is if it starts once, and then you can consume faster and faster the events. So for me, it's the productivity paramount and the tooling, and this is where Java shines. And of course, such questions to developers, what I will answer is, if you would just take, Rust, plain C, or even assembler, this is the fastest startup time, but it's the longest to develop. Have you been involved in pure serverless project? Yes, I tried to help in a pure serverless project. It was a mess. I was asked afterwards to help them. And then what happened is, of course, we used a view functions as integration points, and then everything looked very similar to what we do today. So for me, the functions right now, it is not a pure serverless project. It's like, if you do it in puristic way, what you would get is like distributed commands. So you have commands, and connection between the commands are asynchronous events queues, and such a project would be terrible to debug. For instance, give you another instance. I don't know whether you remember Akka, this project where you had, actors connected with topics or queues, and they were able to consume, the messages. So there was an attempt, I would say 5 years ago, to write, pure Akka projects, and because it was a hype, it was overused, and the overuse was terrible. So I was in project where they asked me how to debug the Akka applications because they had no idea what's going on, and the messages overtook each other and so forth. So I would say, I don't think that lambdas or serverless is like a general purpose programming model, but if you do it right, it's great. So this is what, another example. I was involved as a judge in a Quarkus hackathon, and I reviewed the code of the applications because, I have no idea about business or whatever. I can give you feedback regarding the code. And there is one project called Something with Health, is one of the finalists. And what they did is they introduced AWS Lambdas, or Google functions, I think, to consume the health data from Android devices. And this was a Lambda function, which translated the call to, I would say, normal Java business logic, which I found great. This was a great use of the technology. So is this usable in practice for anything that is not trivial? Stefan Sonneberg asked me, or challenges me a little bit, is it usable for non-trivial projects? And as I said, as an integration point, yes, but you get a few Lambdas and then, normal Kubernetes or Docker projects. And from my perspective, my perspective is the following. I told you this 2 years ago in Bern, hopefully. Always start with a monolith. Don't even think about microservices. If you have something to do, start with a monolith and then, think about distribution. And if you will need, functions as a service, you will know it. For instance, your client is already in the cloud. So in one project, we have IoT data in the cloud, and we have to consume the data. So function is just very natural, to ship a single function which consumes the data, and the cloud translates, the data for us. So we get something consumable, usable directly, and then we just, care about Java. Thank you for the questions. You're a great audience, actually. So how to develop the functions, and are functions cheap? Okay, this word this, and there is a definition of that. Proxy pattern seems natural. Thought this is, I would say, proxy or decorator. So proxy does nothing, and this is decorates a little bit. So functions, I would consider them as a command and decorator. Command, decorated command, decorated with additional, or so. Actually, 3 patterns. For me, a function as a service or a Lambda is a command, decorated, and it's actually adapter as well, because it, converts incompatible events into Java arguments or Java objects. So definition from Wikipedia. Wikipedia is mostly right. And a serverless model is more about business. You are paying per invocation and you're not paying for the server. So this is the biggest change, right? And this already implies the Lambdas, and the Lambdas functions also from AWS, from Wikipedia definition is November 2014. It means it's 6 years old. On the most of the cloud providers since 2016, everyone has cloud functions. And Oracle also, and Oracle is also an interesting one. Show in a second. Now, this is my last slide, not to forget cloud events. And then, if you're interested, there's the online workshop actually next week. So you can still register. Go to EHX Live and you can register. We will talk the entire day about architectures and cover such topics, but not, not codes the entire time, rather than, speak about architectures, and we'll show you lots of code without coding too much. This was the last slide as promised. And then let's start with a little bit of code. Or a little bit of definition. So another good definition is from Martin Fowler. So he is usually, this is the definition of function as a service. You saw the definition of serverless computing, AWS Lambdas, and this. Now, cloud events. Cloud events are interesting. So if you think about this, the functions, they're running in the clouds. And it doesn't have to be HTTP, it can be whatever. And the question is how whatever looks like. And there's a specification on the way, and this is called cloud events. And this tries to standardize the how an event looks like. And there is already a JSON definition, and I will try. I have it somewhere. This is how it looks like. So this is from the cloud events spec, And if you search, this is how such a cloud event would look like. So basically, it always has a type. Source ID has to be unique across the source and ID. They have to be unique. There is a time. This is like extensions can be whatever. Data content type, which is basically a MIME type. And data can be whatever. And actually, what it means is we could just pick, JSON-B from microprofile and consume cloud event. And this cloud event is the idea that this is an interoperable payload between the clouds. So this is the basic idea. So this is somehow interesting because it means, okay, if I have this, I can already consume an emit event. And there are tools like, for instance, Debugging. It's a great tool which converts database commits into Kafka events. And these events are emitted in the cloud event spec. So it's interesting specification, also 2-3 years old. Part of the cloud native foundation, which is something like Jakarta or Java of Java. So this is like CNCF is the API for the clouds, or spec of the clouds. So this is cloud events. So a little marker, the cloud events spec. And now let's do the first interesting project. And the project is called FN project. So the question to chat, does anyone know what FN... Have anyone heard about FN project already from chat? Yes, okay, of course. Because I think everyone who was in one time at Java 1, they saw this because it was announced at Java 1 with a typical commit. And this is open source projects and no more that active, but this is a great way to understand, what a function as a service actually is. And so there are different bindings. Of course, we should focus on Java. And that's the Java runtime. And I will just create for you and discuss a little bit what happens behind the scenes. So first, because we are in serverless environment, what I will have to do first is, first check whether I'm right. Yeah, I'm right. First, I will have to start the servers. So without servers, there's no serverless. Now the server is started. Now, I can init the project, and I have to be exactly fn init Java runtime. I have to say this is Java runtime. So let's do the runtime first, and then it will create a Maven project for me. And the runtime is guild 42. This is the name of the project. And what happened is it created in guild 42 a small project. And this is with function YAML. And the question to the chat, is there anyone who loves YAML actually? Now I'm curious. No. Very good. So I would say this YAML is like, configuration from hell, I would say. Everyone complained about XML, but YAML is even worse. But I have to say, meanwhile, I'm able to edit YAML with minor errors. So, what this is, it means we have a function. This is com example fn hello function, and the command pattern is handle request. Oh, another parallel or another example for such serverless thing is actually a servlet, right? So if you think about a servlet, to get, to post, to whatever, is a kind of a serverless model. We could actually use servlets as a function, which we did 24 years ago or 23 years ago. So now this is the function. And it's a little bit boring, but it comes with a string input, and it concatenates something here, world, and says system out println inside Java, whatever. So, and what we could do, of course, say hello from guild 42 ch. This is the Twitter, so we have to do the at davor is before. So. Save it. So, and then I have to build this. So build actually is simple. So I can just do the clean install. But what I need is the another command. Exactly. So we did this, and we need to create an app. Exactly. Create app. And the test failed. Which is right, because the tests are overrated always. So this is the tests, and this is proprietary FN function test, so we can fix it very quickly. Now it should work, and it's even faster. So let's see what happens. So now build this again. Is built, hopefully. Now, yeah. So it is just regular Maven project. And by the way, it's always the question to know what's behind, what is in the POM. And this is some dependencies on FN project API, which is not used a lot right now. and the testing we don't use, and JUnit 4, which is a little bit outdated, and Java 11. So that's basically all. Okay. So now let's switch here, and we would like to create an app. And just do the app, and the name of the app is Bern. So now we have the app Bern created, and then we have to ship deploy. This is this fn verbose deploy to app deploy app Java app. So what we have to do is to deploy that to app. This was to Bern and local. And local deployment means it pushes it to the local Docker registry. Otherwise, it will push to the Docker Hub or whatever you specified. And there is already Docker running, and this is of course in serverless FN server. That's frightening. Simon, I will show you in a second what I did with the API, because this is like hello world, and I extended the example with something more reasonable. So I show you the API in a second. It's not that frightening. This is just an example, and because it is very easy to start with at home. So this is what I, to get understanding what's going on. So Simon, you are absolutely right. But wait a second, I'll show you something. So we have this. It is deployed, and now we have to describe the API and to get the endpoint. And this is somewhere invoked with the curl, and this is the inspect. So fn inspect function, exactly, function, and this was Java app was Bern, and the function was guild42, I hope. Yes. And this is the endpoint. And now I have to say curl minus x, I think, post minus h. This was another function. Curl minus x post minus h content type. What we are sending is text plain. Text plain. And then do this. And I got from the function this back. And if you search for containers, you will see that this is actually the function. And if you look a little bit, I don't know what the timeout is. Forgot to look it up. I guess 15 seconds is the default in AWS Lambda. Longer than this. But in one point of time, this guild42 container gets killed. So that's the idea. And functions doesn't have to be small. So if you go to Docker images, you will see actually that the guild42 function is 223 megabyte big, but it doesn't matter because this is Amazon's problem, not ours. So this is how it is. So it doesn't matter how big it is, but it's funny still that this is 223 megs. Yeah, and I did it exactly with the same name 3 hours ago to test that. Okay, so now we have it. This was the basic function. What you can do here, you can specify the function as hot, and then it will be kept alive, so there is no called startup problem. What is called startup problem? In all serverless environments, the problem is the functions are stored in a database, usually, or on Amazon Lambda in S3, which is byte array database buckets, so like, key value stores. And what has to happen is it has to be copied from the S3 and started, and this takes time. So, and this is the question related. Someone asked me, is Java suitable because Python will start immediately, and Java will have to start the JVM. The problem with Python, Node.js, or whatever. What you shouldn't forget, you need the operating system, and the environment has to be set up as well. So, I mean, it's not like Python will start, in 1 millisecond, in Java in 1 minute. So everyone has a basic overhead. This is how long it takes to set up, the entire environment. And then the Java startup time could be problematic. Nice. Back to the API. Now, so I would like to stop with FN project because it was just, a basic explanation how it feels like locally, and then proceed with something more production. Oh, by the way, the cool story is this is the foundation for Oracle Cloud Functions. And Oracle also specifies the cloud event. So if you will buy, the commercial Oracle Cloud Functions, then you will get this, so which is actually nice. And this project was started at Java 1 3 years ago. Okay, no questions regarding FN project? No. Then, what I created 2 years ago is that everything is nice, and this was actually like similar, reaction like Simon Bergamin. I said, okay, but I would like to switch to the project serverless. This is my GitHub account, is public. So cd, just go to workspaces and serverless EE. And what I did back then is okay, this is a little bit boring with the commands. And what you could do is the following. So I created a function, a specific function, and with my own API. And this API uses just a JSON. And we have here, this is my function. It's okay, I have an interface, it's called boundary, handle request, JSON object in and JSON object back. And this is JSON P. It's not like this is this micro profile or Jakarta E JSON P. And the endpoint function, this is what it does is there's a method handle requests, and this is typical cloud API. You see com fn project fn API input output events, and such events come with every cloud. If you look at Amazon AWS Java SDK, you will find exactly similar or the same or similar APIs, not the same, similar API. And what happens here? I get the input event in and the output event out. And what I do here is I have here input consume body, and there is input event consume body this convert, and this converts the input stream into JSON object. So what I'm doing here, this is the adapter part or decorator part. I'm converting the proprietary FN project cloud event to my own microprofile Java E Jakarta events, which is actually no difference to traditional APIs. And the same happens back. And at the end, so if you look at the example, sample function here, what I did was the following. There was an echo function. I had here actually injection already, handle request with JSON object and JSON object. And if you take a look, there is no more dependency on the cloud. What I only have is a dependency from my own boundary event, interface, which again is just handle request input. This is no dependency on anything proprietary. And the echo provider is just for fun because it just creates a JSON object on the fly. So, and the trick is the following, that if we go to the, wait a second, serverless EE, yeah, function YAML, I'm registering here the endpoint function com airhack serverless EE bound endpoint function and handle request, format HTTP stream. I would like to have a raw stream, which is also doable on Amazon Lambdas. And then I specify the triggers, which do not matter anymore. But the next interesting part is, so okay, what we can also do is the following. In the implementation, take a look, serverless EE. In the implementation, we have here. What I do is before the event, I'm starting the CDI container. So dependency injection works everywhere. So what I did is I said, okay, everything is nice, but I would actually like to have, with a function, the entire stack. And this worked actually well. So what happened here is, it was proof of concept, but it worked well, is the entry point was a function, command pattern, but behind the function, this was like facade. I had, I could inject it whatever I liked. So there was no difference to my regular work. Okay, this was just like proof of concept, what we can do. You don't have to do it anymore because I'll show you in a second what you could do right now with AWS Lambdas. But if you use FN project, you can still take a look on that. Serverless EE is the name of the project. Question to you. I hope Simon is now got you my point. What is the conversion API and the adapter API? What you can do, and is not as frightening as you might think. But you are still depending on the cloud, because it's not like all clouds are absolutely compatible. But I would say if you are using a cloud, the biggest danger of cloud is not the API dependency, rather the data dependency. Because lots of my clients ask me about my opinion about the cloud, and there are usually two interesting cost factors. One is called ingress and egress. I think ingress is in and egress is out. So if you would like, to push data to the cloud, it costs nothing. It's very cheap. And in worst case or in best case, Amazon send you a truck, Snowball, and with a hard disk, and you can copy the data over, and they will take it to the cloud. But if you will try to get the data out of the cloud, it is significantly more expensive. So this is a little bit the danger of the clouds. Is not API dependency, because if you are careful, you can always create a thin adapter, and behind the adapter you can develop whatever you like with our well-known APIs. Cool. Everyone, I'm still online because the chat is very quiet. So could someone say we are live? Someone is talking. Perfect. Cool. Seba says, I miss your NetBeans environment. Yeah, the reason being is I do a lot of JavaScript development right now. And with Visual Studio Code, I miss back and forth. But in larger projects, I still use NetBeans. So no problem, Seba. So NetBeans is still great. I like always to learn something new. And Visual Studio Code is just perfect. And it works well, better and better. So cool. From time to time, just, write a dot. Otherwise, if I'm disconnected, I won't even recognize. Okay. So nice. So what we did right now is we introduce a little bit serverless EE, and another interesting project which I would like to skip, but this is also very, very popular, is this Apache OpenWhisk, and you can do it locally. And the interesting point, of course, it runs on Kubernetes, and it also you can store events into a Kafka. So OpenWhisk is also a very interesting open source cloud platform, and of course Knative. And Knative is a little bit different. What Knative is like extended Kubernetes with Istio. So this is like how it's called: build, deploy, and run. So with Kubernetes you get Knative, you get Istio and the build process. Why the build process is so important? The question is you have to ship somehow or package the function in order to push it to the cloud. And you cannot just ship, Java jar, because it could be Python, it could be Node.js, it could be Go or Rust. So there is more required. So you need the build process, the push process, and the run process, and versioning, of course, because you would like to have different versions at the same time or do it back and forth. So Knative is also interesting, especially if you would like to do it in your private cloud. This is where I will look at OpenWhisk or Knative right now. So, but now, Lambdas, pricing. First, Ohio is not that relevant. For us, probably Europe, Frankfurt or Ireland, I guess. There is no Bern, which is strange, because Guild 42, belongs to Bern, and this is like the epicenter of the entire IT in Europe. So I'm wondering why there is no Bern location, but probably they are already on it, or there are multiple sites around Bern. So, but you see, 1 million costs 0.20 cents per 1 million requests. And there is for every gigabyte second, and somewhere here you can do a calculation what gigabyte second means. So if someone is eager, what I could do, I could just copy this here, and I will copy it to the chat, and the chat could, for instance, tell me how much 4,000 requests per second will cost for 24 hours if we need, let's say, 120 megabyte of RAM. So this is a nice little example. So, but start with the costs. What I already had in projects, they shipped a function to the cloud and thought this is cheap. And I asked them, why it is cheap than running, a virtual machine with a stock application server all the time, and it was actually orders of magnitude more expensive. So do the math first. Okay. Now, so what cloud events are. are similar to AMQP, for instance, or MQTT, because AMQP, and MQTT, they also specify the wire format, and the cloud events are also specify only the wire format. Okay, now let's do something. And what I would like to do is kill the process first. Hopefully it's dead. Yes. Kill Java. Also switch to Java 11. See whether it works, and it works. And then start with a project. And I would like to use Quarkus as an example and create a function and ship it to the cloud, and Quarkus with microprofile, so just stock project. Why Quarkus? Because in the last 5 to 10 years I did always Whitefly, Payara, OpenLiberty, and now I use Quarkus, and one point of time we would use more Helidon. But in fact, Quarkus is one of the most popular projects right now in my project. So most popular microprofile runtime in my project is highly requested from everywhere. So I could do now Quarkus all the time. So group ID is guild 42. Hopefully it works with the 42. Artifact ID is serverless, of course. And yes, and yes. So, cool. So now, what happened? I have a stock Quarkus with Java 11. With Java 11 somewhere. Wait a second, it's at the beginning. Java 11. And if you take a look at the code, there is no more, it's just stock. It's nothing to do with the functions. It's just string hello, which is text plain, and hello, this can be this hello. So it is just JAX-RS, basically no 10 years old API, or even, yeah, at least 10 years old API code. So now, what I would like to do is, I would like to add something, and this is called an extension. And the name of the extension is lambda HTTP. So always, and if I build that, tests, we have to optimize the tests first. Right. So now if you build it, you will see it is very fast. So now it's built, and then we can start it, the whole thing locally. So it started in 0.7 seconds. And I did actually, before the show, I just as a test, I recorded a screencast, OpenJ9 versus OpenJDK, and OpenJ9 starts in 0.5 seconds. So it is 20 to 30% faster. I will publish it tomorrow or even today, the other video. Okay, so we have it. Now, what happens? So the cool story is, it happened the following. So there is a some JVM YAML, and if you take a look on that, it is the description of AWS Lambda with the routing and everything already done. So what this extension did, this was the POM XML extension. Sorry, this is Quarkus Amazon Lambda HTTP. So this extension, I will delete everything else here. So we don't need the REST assured, and we don't need the JUnit 5. So you can see we only have the REST easy, which is in fact JAX-RS. And now we have just an extension. And what the extension does, it tries, to find from the JAX-RS API, it creates the function wrapper. A little bit more. So what happens here? It created the SAM JVM or SAM native YAML, and this is the answer to someone from the chat. Wait a second. This was from Susa, and he asked me, is Java inferior to Node.js and so forth? So if you use the native, it is like Go. So we can do this, but it takes a minute. So now, functions. So what is the challenge in functions? So we actually done. So we can ship that to the cloud. And the cool story is what I could also do. Now let's create a project. Let's say messenger, and then should be request scoped, just stock code, and public method string message hello from Sunny Bian. From Sunny Bian. You know, this is the center of clouds, high tech, and AI, of course. AI. Oh. Bitcoin. Forgot about that. Bitcoin and AI 2 years ago, you can absolutely machine learning. Machine learning is this. Bitcoin in machine learning is the most important thing. High tech, no one talks about high tech, I would say this. And you know, the voice assistants, they are almost dead. So don't mention all the assistants. So this is actually Bitcoin and ML. So if someone asks what you're doing, Bitcoin and ML, and you are in. So now we are absolutely compatible with the entire IT ecosystem. And we inject the messenger and instead of hello, I do this messenger message. And before the cloud blows up, oh, by the way, I don't know whether you saw this already, properly you saw, Quarkus dev, this is what doesn't matter right now, but I could use this. And then hopefully, right. And then I could edit this more in more agile way. So wait a sec. So, and just do this. I would like to rearrange that. So now, and if I switch to Messenger, so let's do Sunny Ben, and then go here and say localhost 88 hello. So it should answer with hello from Sunny Ben, the center of clouds, Bitcoin and ML, of course, from nice and Sunny Ben. So, and if I just reload that, it is nice and sunny. So this is like auto reload, but this is has nothing to do with functions. It's just an introduction to Quarkus, what Quarkus actually is. So now we have it. So I can just quit that, switch to here. And now let's say I would like to deploy it to the cloud. So in fact, I have my own cloud. The challenge was I have the cloud since Amazon Clouds, I think, account since 10 years at least, so 2008. And it always, is there a possibility to attach a debugger to this? Yes, of course. So if you start that, it even says, wait a second, Samuel, if you will do it again. Here, listening for transport DT socket at address 5005. So if you attach the debugger, you are in. So the Kazemi, you know, tries to find some, you know, something which is negative, I have to say. Also, you know, in Bern is highly sunny weather right now. Just kidding. So we have the Quarkus. It works locally, and now the idea is why not to push it to the cloud? And and the challenge was what I told you. Yeah, you can also start it with the main method, of course. This is just a Java process, not nothing special. So the challenge was I have, you know, the AWS since, I don't know, 12 years, and it always worked. And it's okay, now do it from scratch. So I deleted everything, users, and started from scratch to explain, you know, where the challenges actually were. And I say you will need 2 to 3 hours for the initial Lambda deployment because of the security. So if you push Lambda the first time, it says you need, you know, read writes from S3. Then you do it again, but you also need a write writes to S3. You do this, then it is deployed. Then it says you need now writes to API gateway. Then you get this, then it cannot roll back the deployment. Then you have go to CloudFormation, delete everything. So if you do it right, it takes a long time. You can of course say you have, you know, you have full access to from everywhere. Then it works in 5 minutes. But this I wanted to prevent. So the challenge is, you know, the entire setup. And the cloud dependency, I would say this is exactly that, you know, the entire identity management. This is where you are highly dependent on the clouds, I would say, not necessarily the API. Okay, now a little bit of magic without actual magic. what I would like to do is to say Quarkus deploy, lambda deployment. And what I have to do is you have to specify S3 bucket, simple name. And I think it's this, hopefully. If not, we get an error. Or either this is airhex or lambda.airhex. And then we have to get a fictional name, which is the stack name, which you can make up. So it will be Bn, hopefully dash works. Let's go without Bn guild 42. I don't know. Let's go without 42. Now, I think it works because they always add, custom characters. So let's go with that. So, and it pushes the package to my S3 bucket. And then it creates the entire stack. The stack name is Bn guild 42. And then it creates some roles. Hopefully this works. Looks good so far, and I will explain you what happens behind the scenes. So the magic are 2 lines of code. So you will see in a second. And this is from stack. The stack is created from scratch. This is why it takes so long. I had already existing stacks, but I always would like to show you everything from scratch, and this is from scratch. And cool. What I got back is the URI. And there are in Lambda 2 stages, it's prod and stage. So I could try, to call the function by, and how this works is curl, of course, but then prod and just add hello. So, and this will take a while. This is the initial, start. And we get hello, which is strange. Why this? Okay, we deployed, the old version. So what I forgot to do is Maven clean install, because only Maven clean install creates the new package and then repeat everything. So it's more realistic. So you will see, the redeployment. And then go with the Quarkus lambda deploy. So it deploys again the entire function to my S3 bucket. The URI didn't change. This is like Xdockler deployment 20 years ago, right? So this was a similar experience with... But now is everyone excited about Lambdas? Back then, everyone said, okay, everything is heavyweight and slow. And now 20 years later, we do the same with the YAML. So, but... No, abort it. Let's see, hopefully this works. Hopefully I didn't... Oh, cool. So you see, hello from nice and sunny Ben, the center of clouds, Bitcoin and ML. And the next call is significantly faster. So the question is, how fast is it actually? So what you can do, I would like to start a small test with 5 connections, 5 threads and 5 connections, and the same thing. Okay, no sound. Okay, cool. So as you can see, we have around 22 requests per second, which is not stellar. I would say this is like, probably the legacy WebSphere on Raspberry Pi, I would say. This is like the performance, but it doesn't matter. It's just for complete different purposes. It was never meant for high performance computing. This is what I wanted to say, but it give you, and this is actually production environment. So there is nothing, this is not a fake. This is actually my production machine. But now you saw how it feels like. The question is, of course, if you would like to see is, was Quarkus, I think, lambda deploy Yeah. And ignore this is just for my convenience because I always forget the parameters. So I always do a little hint. So this is actually 2 lines of code. The first, what it does is it takes, and SAM is Serverless Application Management, I think. It's an open source project from Amazon and is also part of the Cloud Native Foundation. And I shipped the template SAM JVM YAML, output template packaged into my S3 bucket AHEX Lambda. So this is what happened behind the scenes. And then after this happens, so what this does is it takes what the Quarkus extension did. So it created, I'll show you what it did, a function.zip, there is one zip, and push it to the bucket. And this one pulls it from bucket and executes that. So this is what happened behind the scenes. And because I don't do it frequently, I created a script, not to forget things. And this is what I usually use. And this CloudFormation describes stacks. It will show me all the stacks with the URI again later, but I don't have to see it all the time. So, and in the IDE, this package YAML, this what was the output from the SAM, and what Quarkus did, it created the function.zip. And if you look at the function.zip and from the SAM JVM YAML, and it says you're using Java 11, which happens to be Corretto on Amazon. So it uses Corretto behind the scenes. And actually, we could take a look at the console. So if I just refresh that, you see we have BN-guild 42. Also, this was not a problem, the naming. And we saw that we are using API gateway as an entry point, and the API gateway is REST. But I could actually say the function should be triggered by, I don't know, Alexa skills kit. Of course, you say Alexa, and then it creates an event and sends me the event. Or Cognito or whatever. Kinesis is more interesting. It's Kafka compatible, and or MSK. As a simple queuing service or messages and whatever. There are lots of integration points. So this is the most common, I would say, and this is where functions are shining, is exactly this. And so what you see here is the following. We have 512 megs of RAM, Java 11 Corretto, and concurrency thousands, I think, is the default. Unreserved account concurrency is 1,000, but if you like, you can reserve some more concurrency to lower the latency or make it more predictable, but it costs, of course, more money. So now the questions about Go. So what I could do, wait a second, I could actually go here to my and say I would like to have monitoring. It is enabled, and the X-ray is not necessary actually. So it is enabled per default, which is great because then I can go to functions, this one, and monitoring. So and then you have you see what is the startup time and how long does it take, to start the function. And with the X-ray, I think in the X-ray we'll see the latency. But we can skip this right now. So you saw how long it took the first time. So if I did this curl, so now the function is hot, so it returns immediately. But what I could also do, and now it becomes interesting, I can say Quarkus, Quarkus lambda native deploy. And this is actually exactly the same. I need the S3 bucket simple name, and this was AHEX lambda, I hope. I always confuse the... Yeah, let's try AHEX lambda. AHEX.lambda. And the stack name was... Quarkus lambda. Okay, this was the stack name. This is, just think about a stack name. A stack name is more like an application, and an application comprises multiple functions. This is the idea. Lambda native deploy. And this is exactly the same script with a small difference. And it will create in Docker container a native image first. Perfect. So this is what I expected. With GraalVM, create, and then you get performance very similar to Go. But this takes a second. And I show you the image. So, and native. And the only difference is the following. So first I do the clean package with native and I say, please build in container. This is the main difference. And then I tell Sam, please use the Sam native template, not the JVM template. This is the only difference. And because you are a nice community from Bern, you have this, and the other thing is very similar. So it was just, instead of SAM native, there is SAM JVM YAML. Okay. Now we have it. And if you like to have the code, I can send it to Simon and they will distribute for you. No problem. So we let's see how it does. So it optimizes everything like crazy because it tries, you know, to find all the dependencies. And my machine is now really hot. So if you have questions, feel free to ask now. And what I would like to show you is AWS SAM. And this is what I use for deployment. And this is actually great, also open source tool. And it is part of the CNCF as well. And this is used for packaging and for deploying. Someone asked me whether I'm recording the session. And the question is, yes, we agreed with Simon that I'm allowed to record the session. And I will push the session to YouTube channel. And also Simon will push his session or his version of the session to YouTube channel, to his YouTube channel. No, his Guild 42 YouTube channel. Exactly. And I will push my version and we will push both. So this is what we agreed on. Oh, cool. So as you can see, it already created something and deployments and deleted something, which sometimes delete doesn't work if you have not the rights, but we are happy. And it creates, does the update. And then we'll get a native lambda written with JAX-RS, performance over Go, way better than Node.js with our familiar programming model on lambda. So I think the URI is different. And now watch the difference, startup time. Done. It was still slow, but it was significantly faster than the Java, right? Someone asked me, so we can have multiple functions in a single project, Seba says. Yes. And the cool story is, watch this. Now, what I can also do, and the next time I will deploy as Java again because it's faster. I think it doesn't matter. So now watch this. This is, think about this, what I usually do now. Microprofile JAX-RS project. I could actually say, I would like to have REST easy JSONB, exactly. And the cool story as well, I would also like to have Open API. And now I would like to do the following. So I could create actually, and forget about the folder structure. Usually it's way nicer, but it's not the point of the session. So I would like to create the message. And the message, of course, delete message Java. It's the NetBeans effect. So message Java. And public string content, I think is enough. Content, and then let's create a constructor. This one is needed, and we also need another constructor with string message, and just do this content equals message. Okay, looks good. And then we say this thing returns now the message with some message. Why not? Or it could be string, it doesn't matter. String input plus. So the question is, can I monitor the, how do you monitor the runtimes of your functions? So the monitoring, there is two possibilities. There's the CloudWatch and X-Ray. In X-Ray, you see, the entire traffic. With CloudWatch, it just scrapes the functions. So it is very similar monitoring to Prometheus, I would say. So you can monitor the functions, but not with metrics, because microprofile metrics would work as long as the function is hot. Then the metrics would just disappear, right? So we have that. And then what I wanted to do is to return the message. And this is like, again, it's nothing to do with function. This is what I really like. Is, oh no, keep that. Keep that. And in addition, now let's say here, return, hello, 25 years of Java. Just switch the message. And then, now it becomes interesting. What we can do now, or should work, we can introduce another method. Message, let's say process, string input. And what I would like to do is just go with this. Produces now application JSON. This was the question from before. I could have actually an entire resource here. At consumes, consumes, what's wrong with me today? Consumes media type dot application JSON. No, text plain. Text plain is in, this is out. And then I can say this messenger dot message with input and this back. And consumes cannot be resolved. Import. This is something strange here. But now it looks reasonable. Okay. So now Maven clean install. I have to build this. Maven clean in. And there's a local deployment as well, which I didn't show you because I did a lot with. Thank you. You saved me a lot of time. So okay. Quarkus, lambda, Quarkus, lambda, deploy. Perfect. So now it will take a little bit longer because I had the native stack, and the native stack is now tiered down, and now it is changed or overwritten with the JVM stack again. So it will take a second. This won't work. Thank you. I wanted to have post. I'm not sure whether I'm able to stop that, so make it run, not that I have to delete the entire thing. Yeah, it won't work. I will push it again. And the cool story is I can have, sub resource, because why? The events are coming as a binary event and translated into HTTP events. So I could actually have almost an ordinary app. As we already see, I'm using here get post. I could have entire resource with injected with JSON-B entity and injected control. So it is for me almost a regular programming model with AWS Lambdas. And with that, almost no difference to Kubernetes. The only difference, of course, is I have one resource per Lambda, which is okay. There's no more command pattern. It's a set of command patterns per class. So I will have to deploy it again, but now it should be faster. So we need a post. Thank you, Casimir. Feel free to ask questions. Okay. The question is, yeah, it's still the same curl. So if I do this, you see it takes significant hello 25 years of Java. And then let's do the more interesting part, -x post with h content type. Content type is text plain. Then accept, I think it doesn't matter. And -d is hello something. And as you can see, it works. So now I did get and post, and now this is almost an ordinary application for me. But now comes the cool stuff. What also works is this. Open API. And I have the complete description of the Swagger Open API out of the box. And, unless, sadly, I forgot something. The Swagger is disabled in production mode, and I'm now in production mode. That's the problem. Forgot about that, sorry. So unfortunately, we have to deploy again, but we get a lot of deployments. Are EJBs still valid and transactions? EJBs not. EJBs won't work on Quarkus at all. What we do in projects, we use request scoped with transactional, and the semantic is almost identical to EJBs. And because of Quarkus optimizations, there is no performance penalty. So you could use exactly CDI and JTA, so you get almost exactly the same as EJBs. And on other servers, EJBs are still faster than CDI. On Quarkus, because there's no reflection at runtime, there is no performance difference. So you can just use CDI request scoped. And with micro-profile fault tolerance, which will also work on Lambda, you could use bulkhead asynchronous, and then you get almost something like max pool size even, so throttling. But this is not necessary on Lambdas because you can throttle via the console. Okay. Can you achieve pooling? No, but the pooling is not that important because in Quarkus, because why pooling was important in on application services, what they did is they instantiated the same object over and over again, and the injection happened per reflection over and over again as well. And on Quarkus, the injection doesn't happen, per reflection, rather than it is generated bytecode, so there's almost no performance difference. Cool. Thank you for the question. So great. So now, call it. You see. So we call it first. Yeah, that's the open API, but then I would just pick that and go to the browser and say Swagger UI. And I get the Swagger UI. The problem is the URI is not right, but we can fix that with the following. I do this, explore, and almost just go with usually it works well. End of stream expected. So do it again. Then just put it Swagger UI, explore. Interesting. Some strange thing. But you saw, there's the only configuration is the URI. The Swagger UI needs the URI, and this is something wrong. I don't see the problem right now. Where because what works is this, right? So if I say I would like to have the prod is the stage, and then if I ask for open API, I get this document back, and the problem is that this Swagger UI has a problem with the URI here. No, the same problem. Have you ever chained functions together as a sequence? Yeah, in a project there is, in Amazon, you can have a function flow or something, so you could do this. Ah, you are right. Thank you. I was completely wrong. So absolutely. So this is prod open API. Prod open API. This is what we should, and I put, I think, Swagger. Wait a second. So this is right. So it will work. It has to, because I made it work several times. So prod Swagger UI. So this is what I need. So, and now here we need the prod open API, and this now it works. The error was, I think I put here Swagger UI, and this was the problem. So and now I can go here and just explore, you know, my lambdas function as if were my local. So hello forbidden, because you know this is not right. So we'll have to fiddle a little bit to get it right, because what is lacking now, the prod. But you see it is working. So. So yeah, whatever. So you can try it at home. I just wanted to show you what's interesting here is that what I created with the fn function, the adapter logic, the Quarkus ships out of the box with that, and this is the function here. And if you just open the function.zip, you will find, you know, the glue code between the Amazon AWS proprietary API and our JAX-RS standard microprofile Jakarta API. Cool. I think so. We could develop the application and just push it as a Lambda function, and the other platforms are very, very similar. It's not like, you know, this is something very special in AWS Lambda, and I just use Lambda because I use AWS in my current project. I didn't want it to fiddle too much with the credentials. Okay, any questions? I hope I created, you know, I explain you somehow objectively what serverless and functions actually are, and for what are they great. And chaining functions, if you do it in larger project, this is where, you know, the pain starts, because in one point of time it is really hard to debug, you know. And it sounds great. Every team, you know, pushes functions with a specific version. But just imagine a larger project where you will have to maintain a matrix of different functions with different versions. I think what will happen is exactly what happens in Maven right now. What I see is multi-module Maven projects with hundreds of modules, and all the modules have exactly the same version, and everything is shipped at once, which doesn't make any sense at all. So what I think what will also happen in functions projects, where we have millions of functions and everything is pushed to production at once, because no one dares to have version drifts. So what is the day in the project when the complexity of serverless will grow past? I would say if you just use serverless as a hype on day 3, I would say already it is out of control. But if you use functions as an integration point, where it is obvious that you have to use them, like it's exactly the same, as the GMS came out, what I said, in the IBM consultants came in, and I saw projects where they have, hundreds of message-driven beans. This was, hell on earth. No one knew what happens behind the scenes. But right now, in some project, we have a few message-driven beans, and they make absolute sense. So I would say use function as an integration point. This is like, Alexa skill, or you have in the cloud IoT devices, and then these functions are just great. They will consume your events and forward the events to Java poachers, basically. Okay, so I hope this was pragmatic, and this is exactly what I do in projects right now. And I think the great story is you are not even independent from Lambda, you're also independent from Quarkus, because the code I've wrote would also run on Glassfish without any problems right now, or Glassfish, Payara, Whitefly, Halidon, and whatever runtimes you have. Okay, cool. Questions, Simon? I think we are almost over time. So I could hack something, but basically it worked better than I thought. I thought we would struggle more with the entire deployment, but it worked surprisingly well. So any questions? And if you are interested, first, there's the AirHacks Live. This is September 24th. It's just about Java architectures and also serverless lambdas and stuff like that, but it's not a lot of coding. And I had to convert all the courses to online. No, I converted them. So in December, wait a second, workshops@mbean.com. The 2 workshops were supposed to be on Airport Munich, but they are going to be online. So there will be this year no workshop at Munich Airport. And there are already sufficient registrations to all the workshops. And this could be a little bit critical. So if you would like to attend fast, because this is limited because of the number of licenses. I cannot accept more than certain number of attendees. Okay. So did you use a Quarkus extension to add Quarkus plugins to the project? Yes, I did. But what the extension, so Shift Control P, Quarkus add extensions to current project. And what I also did, there is, wait a second. I created a Visual Studio VSC. Here. Visual Studio Code installation and setup. So this is a free video where I created all the extensions necessary so that my Visual Studio Code behaves like this. So if you search Visual Studio Code installation and setup for Java and Maven, you will find that. And I installed everything from scratch. So I deleted my Visual Studio Code and installed everything from scratch, because I get a question over and over again. And this is like the initial setup. The workshop at 24 is GoToMeeting. No, I use BlueJeans because it has better sound quality, but I would send a link. It works so far on all platforms very well. And how it works, you will register and I will send you the link. Okay, so this is basically it. And the extension. You could just copy and paste the code here, and these are the extension. So you don't need to use, the Visual Studio Code extension wizard. I could just say, here dependency and say I would like to have fault tolerance, right? Then IO Quarkus Quarkus, and this would be Quarkus small ri, exactly, small ri and fault tolerance, I think is this then. No. Fault tolerance, and now I have all the patterns included. So if the extension is just dependencies, a little bit optimized dependencies. These are the extensions. Cool, thank you. Any other questions?
Vielen Dank. Vielleicht kannst du gerade noch sagen, dass du auch Deutsch sprichst.
Ja, genau. Könnt ihr auch Deutsch Fragen stellen. Sehr gerne. General questions. Why so many frequent JDK releases recently from Oracle? Luxon asked me this. I mean, recently several years, and this was the idea from actually Sun employees which are working on Oracle right now, and the JDK developers, and they wanted to have like train releases because it took way too long. So I think this, JDK 6, it took like 2 years until the next release. I like that actually, but this was no more, up to date because the community wouldn't accept that. We get in Node.js every other day a release, and we have to wait 2 years until something happened in JDK, and this is really bad for marketing. So this is the problem. And right now there are, I think, half-year releases, and there are some LTS releases, like JDK 11 is a long-term release, LTS, and JDK 14 not. So if you are just stick to LTS, you get similar behavior as before. But the reason is they wanted to push more features faster. So, and this is, I think it was not even idea from Oracle, rather than the idea from JDK engineers, who created JVM, which is I think is a good thing. And this was actually the entire time the Oracle was constantly criticized that it takes forever, or Sun Microsystems back then takes forever now to release JDKs, and then they fix it. And now it's fast. That's the reason. Yeah, thank you, Luxon. Other questions? Question to you: was it something new for you, or was it no? Everyone knew about that, and there was just boring stuff once again. But I hope it was valuable. So as a online meeting, and next time we can do something completely different, of course. Oh, cool! Thank you. Perfect. Okay, when it's all new, perfect. I want to say what I wanted to do is just to push a message to some queue system, but we will do more and more AWS. So I hope it was okay. And for you, I mean, what you have to know is this. This is about business more, not architecture. It's not like with Lambda something get better. I think with Lambda something can get cheaper. So this is the main difference.